Santiago del Carmen Maria, the queen of crowning thought. I speak truth unapologetically. It's my...
Trump's horrific vision, forcing the homeless into concentration camps under the guise of help in 2026. Listen closely, because the nightmare is unfolding right now in early 2026. Donald Trump's administration is barreling ahead with a ruthless plan to round up America's unhoused population and shove them into what can only be described as modern-day concentration camps, vast, isolated tent cities or transitional facilities where freedom is stripped away. Work is mandatory. And dignity is non-existent. This isn't compassion, it's control, a punitive power grab disguised as tough love that targets the most vulnerable while ignoring the systemic failures driving homelessness. Trump's so-called Make America Healthy Again agenda is nothing but a facade for cruelty, shifting billions in federal funds from real, permanent housing solutions to temporary holding pens that enforce labor, surveillance, and involuntary confinement. Over 170,000 people are at immediate risk of being uprooted, and millions more could follow as this fascist blueprint spreads. We're witnessing the death of empathy in policy, replaced by a regime that criminalizes poverty and treats human beings like problems to be warehoused out of sight. The details are as chilling as they are deliberate. Back in November 2025, the Trump team announced a massive overhaul of federal homelessness aid, redirecting $3.9 billion from proven permanent housing programs to transitional. Setups loaded with strings attached, mandatory work requirements, service obligations, and behavioral controls. This isn't about lifting people up, it's about breaking them down. Advocacy groups like the National Homelessness Law Center have blasted it as shameful. Warning of over 800 involuntary beds, forced labor, and a system that prioritizes punishment over stability. Trump's executive order from August 2025 set the stage, encouraging states to clear encampments and withhold funding from those who don't comply, effectively greenlighting sweeps that funnel people into these camps. Experts call it a punitive approach that broadens involuntary commitments without bolstering supportive services, turning homelessness into a crime solved by isolation. Picture this: massive parcels of federal land on the outskirts of cities, dotted with tents or barrack-style shelters patrolled by authorities, where residents are forced to work for their keep, cleaning, laboring, or whatever the overseers demand. Trump himself floated this during his campaign, vowing to ban urban camping and relocate the homeless to these sites with doctors and social workers on hand. But don't be fooled by the rhetoric. These aren't havens, they're detention centers. In states like California, where Governor Gavin Newsom's earlier order echoed Trump's playbook, encampments are being dismantled without alternatives, pushing people into limbo or worse. Now, with HUD's funding shifts kicking in for 2026, cities face a choice: comply with the new mandates or lose millions, forcing them to prioritize these camp-like transitional programs over stable homes. The hypocrisy is staggering. While Trump and his cronies slash taxes for billionaires and balloon the deficit with giveaways to the elite, they're gutting the very programs that could end homelessness. Permanent supportive housing, proven to work, with success rates over 90% in keeping people off the streets, is being starved of funds, redirected to short-term fixes that cycle people back into instability. Over half of the 2026 funding for key initiatives is being siphoned away, affecting 170,000 at-risk individuals who could lose their housing overnight. And for what? To enforce personal responsibility. On people ravaged by economic inequality, mental health crises, addiction, and a housing market rigged by corporate greed. Trump's plan ignores root causes: skyrocketing rents up 50% since 2017, stagnant wages, and a lack of affordable units, choosing instead to blame and contain the victims. Critics aren't mincing words. This is eugenics light, a way to hide the unhoused from public view while subjecting them to forced labor and surveillance. Harvard experts warn it's a shift toward punitive measures that could exacerbate health issues and cycle more people through jails and hospitals. Involuntary commitments are expanding, allowing authorities to detain people without due process, echoing the worst abuses of institutionalization. And with the Supreme Court's 2024 ruling allowing cities to ban sleeping in public, the path to these camps is paved. Get swept off the street, get funneled into a tent, get forced to comply or face worse. This is Trumpism at its core: cruelty as policy, division as strategy, and profit over people. His first term saw similar failures, empty promises on infrastructure while homelessness surged. Now, in round two, he's doubling down, using executive power to bypass Congress and impose this dystopia. States are already feeling the squeeze. In Atlanta, efforts to close encampments are stalling without HUD funds, but with Trump's mandates looming, they'll have no choice but to ramp up. Nationwide, food banks and shelters brace for overflow as SNAP cuts and Medicaid slashes compound the crisis, pushing more into homelessness just to be rounded up. We can't stand idly by while this authoritarian nightmare unfolds. These camps aren't solutions, they're prisons for the poor, a way to sanitize cities for the wealthy while breaking spirits. Demand real action. Massive investments in affordable housing, mental health services, living wages, and protections against evictions. Reject the camps, boycott the enablers, and organize against this regime's war on the vulnerable. Trump's plan is a stain on America. Fight it with everything you've got before more lives are destroyed. Trump's bloody hands. The murder of a U.S. citizen by ICE, Epstein cover-up exposed, and the economic slaughter of Americans in 2026, the Trump regime's reign of terror has reached new depths of depravity in early 2026. With blood on its hands from the cold-blooded killing of an innocent American citizen, a brazen cover-up of Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile empire to shield the powerful, and an economic apocalypse that's leaving millions gasping for air under crushing prices, poverty wages, mass evictions, and empty stomachs. This isn't leadership, it's a calculated assault on the soul of America where the elite feast while the rest starve, bleed, and beg for mercy. Donald Trump, the twice-impeached con man turned dictator-in-chief, promised to make America great again. But instead, he's delivering death, deception, and destitution. We're calling it out loud and clear. Trump is murdering the American dream, one policy, one bullet, one suppressed file at a time. Families are being torn apart, homes ripped away, and lives destroyed, all while Trump and his MAGA minions distract with hate and lies. Enough is enough. The truth demands to be screamed from the rooftops. Let's start with the outright murder that's shaking the nation to its core. On a frigid January morning in Minneapolis, ICE agents, Trump's personal stormtroopers in his war on immigrants, gunned down 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good, a U.S. citizen and mother, in what witnesses describe as an execution-style slaying during a botched raid. Videos from multiple angles contradict the administration's victim-blaming narrative, showing Good's vehicle turning away from the officer as he unleashed lethal force. The White House immediately spun it as self-defense against a domestic terrorist. But state officials and protesters are demanding justice, calling it an abuse of power in Trump's mass deportation frenzy. Nationwide protests erupted on January 10, with crowds chanting "No justice, no peace" as they decry the killing as emblematic of Trump's unchecked authoritarianism. Good's family, devastated and seeking answers, faces a legal maze to sue ICE, complicated by sovereign immunity and the regime's stonewalling. This isn't an isolated accident. It's the direct result of Trump's orders for sweeping raids, turning federal agents into killers while he threatens to denaturalize citizens who deserve it. Trump murders U.S. citizens through his policies, and the blood is fresh on Minneapolis streets. But the carnage doesn't stop at bullets. Trump's web of deception extends to burying the truth about Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted pedophile whose island of horrors implicated the elite, including Trump himself. Despite a near-unanimous congressional mandate in the Epstein Files Transparency Act H.R. 4405, Trump's Justice Department has released less than 1% of the required documents by the December 19, 2025, Deadline, only 125,575 pages out of millions. Half of Americans believe Trump is actively covering up Epstein's crimes, according to a January 2-5, 2026, Economist/YouGov poll, with Democrats, independents, and even some Republicans smelling the rot. Attorney General Pam Bondi, Trump's loyalist, penned a letter to FBI Director Kash Patel demanding the full and unredacted files, but it's all theater. The administration is stalling, redacting, and deflecting to protect the powerful. Lawmakers like Reps. Thomas Massie and Ro Khanna are pushing for a court-appointed overseer to force transparency, but Trump's team drags its feet, fueling conspiracy theories and questions about his own mentions in the dribbled-out files. Progressives like Rep. Pramila Jayapal stand with survivors, vowing to expose the cover-up, but Trump's grip on the DOJ ensures the truth stays buried. This isn't oversight, it's obstruction, shielding pedophiles and predators while Epstein's victims wait for justice that's perpetually denied. And while Trump plays hide-and-seek with Epstein's skeletons, everyday Americans are suffocating under an economic hellscape of his making, high prices that strangle budgets, poverty wages that mock hard work, utilities shutting off in the dead of winter, evictions ripping families from homes, and food insecurity leaving children hungry in the richest nation on earth. Trump's tariffs, those beautiful taxes on imports, are the poison pill, projected to cost average families $1,300, $2,600 more annually, while shaving 0.5 to 1% off GDP growth. Building homes. Forget it, tariffs could result in 450,000 fewer new units through 2030, deepening the housing crisis with little inventory and sky-high costs. A December 2025 survey by the Century Foundation reveals the working class is hammered hardest. 70% say costs are unaffordable, with many skipping meals, delaying care, or piling on debt just to survive. Wages. A cruel joke under Trump, stagnant or falling in real terms, with the bottom 40% hit hardest by tariff costs exceeding any tax cuts. Bills are shutting down left and right, utilities surging 8 to 12% from AI demands and grid failures, leaving families in the dark and cold. Evictions are exploding, with seniors and families one missed payment from the streets, as Trump's budget freezes $10 billion in TANF welfare funds and worsens affordability across the board. Food insecurity grips millions, with SNAP cuts reducing benefits and imposing junk food bans that shame the poor without addressing greed-driven grocery hikes. Trump's roadmap of destruction, gutting education, health, and safety nets, makes life unaffordable, pushing people to breaking points where breathing feels like a luxury. This trifecta of terror, murder by proxy, elite cover-ups, and economic warfare is Trump's legacy. A nation where citizens are killed in the streets, truths are buried to protect predators, and survival is a privilege for the wealthy. We won't mince words. Trump is destroying lives with impunity, and his MAGA cult cheers it on. Rise up, demand accountability, investigate the killing, release the Epstein files unredacted, reverse the economic sabotage. The people deserve justice, not this fascist farce. Follow so we can stay connected. Your support matters more than you know, and I appreciate every moment you give to listen. Your support is important to me, and it helps me a lot. It keeps me active, bringing you important information with your support and comments, likes and shares. Feel free to like, support, and subscribe. I will always provide content for you. I appreciate every support you give. Crowning Thoughts True Speaker Copyright 2025 by Santiago D.C. Maria, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution. I love you all and I appreciate each of you. Stay blessed. Thank you for listening. Love always. Santiago D.C. Maria.